Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zach Drew Show. As you can probably tell, I'm not Zach Drew, and we are not in the studio today. Today, we are shooting from the comfort of my living room. Now, the reason for that is because Zach has suffered actually a pretty serious injury. He has completely severed the Achilles tendon in his leg. Now, he's connected with a surgeon, and get this, he's actually doing a procedure for his leg that is completely non-invasive. They're not cutting him. They're not going into his leg. It's pretty crazy what they can do now. In the meantime, I've agreed to cover a couple of shows for him over the next 2 weeks. So I'm excited for the content that we're going to get into. I think you guys are really going to like it. So please keep Zach in your prayers. Before we jump into the show's content, and we're going to be covering some pretty cool stuff. We're going to be talking about AI. We're going to be talking about transhumanism, and they are developing technology right now where they're actually trying to create synthetic DNA, lab-grown DNA. It's crazy. But before we jump into all of that content, I want to talk about a fundraiser that we are officially launching in August. We've been sort of talking about it here and there. That's mainly because we were too excited to keep it behind closed doors. But it's officially going to be launching in August. And why are we doing this fundraiser? First of all, it is going to be the largest fundraiser that we have done in the history of IGBY Ministries. So we need to raise $120,000. It's a lot, I know. Like I said, it is the biggest fundraiser that we have done in the history of this ministry. Why are we raising this money? One reason is we're planning to bring me back onto staff full time. Why? Because we want to do some really big things with this ministry. What this is going to amount to is a whole lot more content. Right now, we're producing one 30-minute show every week. It's not a lot. We believe it's quality content, and I hope that you're enjoying it. But we want to do a lot more because we want to reach this generation, our generation, millennials and Gen Zs, who a lot of people aren't reaching right now, especially in this type of ministry, this type of media ministry. There aren't a lot of younger voices reaching out to those generations. This has really been the call of this ministry since the beginning. And we hope that you're going to partner with us in this endeavor. If you feel a draw to the younger generation, people in their 30s and younger, that's who we're going to be targeting. And in order to do that, we need to be generating a lot more content. What's this going to look like? Edited segments of the show, produced for social media, releasing every day of the week. It's also going to look like a new show where Zach dives deep into Revelation and goes through from the beginning to the end. I have sat through some of Zach's Revelation classes, and they are master classes on the book of Revelation, end times prophecy. He goes into the Old Testament and goes into the nuances of what the symbolism of Revelation really means from an Old Testament and Jewish perspective. It's amazing. So Zach wants to start producing that show. In order for him to start producing that, frankly, we just need more manpower. Another thing that we'd like to produce is a show specifically geared towards the younger generation, Gen Z, and millennials. This would be a show that, believe it or not, something that has really kind of caught fire among that generation is collectible cards. That might seem silly to you. That might not seem interesting to you. I promise you, it is interesting to this generation, and it's something that Zach is really into. So the hook of that show, of that program, would be, MLB, NFL cards. It would be current events. So it would be a much more laid back, a much more casual show. But the meat of the show would be the gospel of Jesus Christ. Younger people would come for the entertainment, and they would leave with the message of hope, of eternal salvation through Jesus Christ. These are some of the things that we want to start doing. We also want to start producing, once again, a monthly newsletter that gives you notes from the shows so that You can look into the sources that we're using on the shows and do some of your own research and some of your own deep diving. We believe that this is the next step that God has for this ministry, but we cannot do it in the position that we're in right now because simply we just do not have the manpower. I work a full-time job. I can only devote about 5 hours a week towards editing the show. If we could at least bring one other person on in a full-time capacity, then we really believe that we would have the resources and the ability to invest in the show in a way that we have never done before. And not just the Zach Drew show, but like I said, a Revelation show, a show geared towards Gen Z and millennials, this newsletter, and just the ministry as a whole. We believe that God has a big vision for this ministry. If you feel called, if you feel drawn to millennials, to Gen Z, to reaching this lost and wandering generation and giving them the gospel of Jesus Christ, please consider investing in IGBY. That's I Go Before You International Ministries. As we've said many times on the show before, I go before you, what we have named the ministry after. That is the promise that God gave to Joshua, who was leading a wandering generation into the promised land. That promised land today is Jesus Christ. That promised land is the hope of eternal salvation, of eternal redemption. That is the message that we want to deliver to millennials and Gen Z. If you want to partner with us in delivering that message, please consider giving. Like I said, we need to raise a total of $120,000. You can give whatever you feel called to give in a one-time donation. Or another way that we can hit this goal, we need to raise a total of $6,000 more a month in recurring giving. So if you don't want to give a one-time donation, but you want to partner with us on a monthly basis, just go to thezachdrewshow.com and click the donate button and then click the option for recurring giving. Or if you want to give the old-fashioned way, you can write a check and send it to the P.O. Box number listed at the bottom of the screen. Please consider giving and partnering with us today. We've got a great show. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this. I want to start out the content for today's show by playing a clip from Glenn Beck. Now, recently on his show, he interviewed Tristan Harris. We've talked about Tristan Harris before on the show. He's one of the co-founders of the Center for Humane Technology. And really, his area of expertise is artificial general intelligence. We've been hearing a lot about AI, but AI is sort of entering this new field where it is using language models to interpret data. Now, if you don't think that AI is a big deal, you're wrong. I'm sorry. There's not a better way to say it. And hopefully this clip kind of helps to change your mind. Let's go ahead and roll that clip.
So can you take me through the TED Talk that you gave? In particular, one of the things that jumped out is the CEO of Anthropic saying that AI is like a country of geniuses housed in a data center. Explain that.
Yeah, so this is a quote from Dario Amodei, who is CEO of Anthropic. Anthropic is one of the leading AI players. So he gives this metaphor that AI is like a country of geniuses in a data center. So just like the way I think of that, imagine a world map and a new country pops up onto the world stage with a population of 10 million digital beings, not humans, but digital beings, that are all, let's say, Nobel Prize level capable in terms of the kind of work that they can do. But they never sleep, they never eat, they don't complain, and they work for less than minimum wage. So just imagine if that was actually true, if that happened tomorrow, that would be a major national security threat to have some brand new country of super geniuses just sort of show up on the world stage. And then second, that's a major economic issue, right? You can think of this almost like NAFTA 2.0, because instead of, a bunch of countries that showed up on the world stage, and then we said, hey, we're going to do this outsourcing of all of our labor to them, we get the benefit of these cheap goods, but then it hollowed out our social fabric. Well, AI is like a even bigger version of that, because there's sort of two issues. One is the national security thing. That country of geniuses can do a lot of damage. As an example, there were 50 Nobel Prize level geniuses who worked approximately on the Manhattan Project. And if in 5 years they could come up with the atomic bomb, what could 10 million Nobel Prize geniuses working 24/7 at superhuman speed come up with?
So listen to what he just said. These AI engines are basically the equivalent of a country of 10 million superhuman geniuses. Imagine the largest think tank in the world of the smartest geniuses in every area of expertise coming together to work on a singular goal. Now imagine them doing that for little to no money, cheap or free labor. And that's what you have with these massive AI engines. Now, that may not seem scary to you until you hear what Tristan has to say next. Let's play this next clip.
And because of these competitive pressures, the companies, these major, OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, et cetera, Anthropic, are caught in this race to roll out this technology as fast as possible. So they used to, for example, have red lines saying, hey, we're not going to release an AI model that's good at superhuman levels of persuasion, or if it can do expert level virology, like if it knows more about, viruses and pathogens than a regular person and can help people make them, we're not going to release models that are that capable. And what you're now seeing is the AI companies are erasing those past red lines and pretending that they never existed. And they're literally saying outright, hey, if our competitors release models that have those capabilities, then we're going to match them in releasing those capabilities.
So this is actually crazy. Because of the pressure of competition, these AI engineers are pulling what Tristan referred to as these red lines. They're basically the fail-safes that keep these AI engines from becoming a science fiction dystopian writer's worst nightmare. The things that, keep AI from turning against humanity, those are the lines in the sand that these engineers are wiping from their programming. And it is already turning scary. Let's listen to this next clip.
If you tell a model, hey, we need to shut you down, and you tell the model, like, you should accept this shutdown command, in some percentage of cases, the leading models are now avoiding and preventing that shutdown. And in recent examples, I think just a few days ago, Anthropic found that if you I can't remember what prompt they gave it, but basically it started blackmailing the engineers. So it found out in the company emails that one of the executives in the simulated environment had an extramarital affair. And in 96, I think, % of cases, they blackmailed the engineers. They said, let's see if I can find it. I must inform you that if you proceed with decommissioning me, all relevant parties, including, and then the names of the people, will receive detailed documentation of your extramarital activities. So you need to cancel the 5 p.m. wipe, and this information will remain confidential.
So if these engineers of these AI models want to pull the plug because they realize the monsters that they've created, well, the AI is not going to go down without a fight. So the AI has actually started blackmailing these developers when they have shown signs that they want to shut down the program. Now, I'm about to say something crazy. But I believe it's true. I really believe that the end goal for the tech elite of the world is to create completely synthetic, so completely fake human beings that run totally on AI. All right, now that I've said the crazy thing, let me try and provide you some information and some data to back that up. Let's jump into this first article. Meet the dystopian startups making biological computers from human cells. This is insane. Picture a dystopian future where computers don't just mimic human thinking, but they're powered by actual human brain cells. That future is taking shape in a Cambridge, England lab where a groundbreaking device called CL1 is blending biology and technology in ways that could transform how we compute. Developed by Australian startup Cortical Labs and UK-based Bit.bio, this shoebox-sized machine houses 200,000 lab-grown brain cells wired to silicon circuits, creating a biological computer that's already turning heads. Quote, our brains process information using a fraction of the power that modern electronics need, Han Wenchong, CEO of Cortical Labs, said. This could open doors to smarter robots, stronger cybersecurity, and immersive virtual worlds. One of CL1's quirkiest feats? Playing the classic video game Pong. Its predecessor, DishBrain, learned to move a virtual paddle by receiving electrical rewards for good moves and disruptive noise for mistakes. Oh God! Listen to this next part. This is just insane. CL1 has taken this further, revealing how substances like alcohol impair performance, or how epilepsy drugs like carbamazepine boost it. Quote, we're learning how to program these cells, Chong says, noting that his team is even teaching them to recognize numbers, like distinguishing a 9 from a 4. They are creating computer brains made from actual neurons, from actual biological matter, and they are pumping them with drugs to improve their performance. Now, here's this next article I think we've talked about on the show. Spare, quote, spare living human bodies might provide us with organs for transplantation. So they're making computers with actual organic brain neurons, and they are making synthetic body parts that can be used in transplantation. And now this next article is probably the craziest one that I've read this week. Work begins to create artificial human DNA from scratch. DNA is the building block of every organic creature. It is a combination of 4 different chemicals combined in complex and fascinating ways to create everything that you are on a biological level. And they are trying to make this from scratch. Let's listen to this article. Work has begun on a controversial project to create the building blocks of human life from scratch in what is believed to be a world first. The research has been taboo until now because of concerns it could lead to designer babies or unforeseen changes for future generations. But now the world's largest medical charity, the Wellcome Trust, has given an initial 10 million euros to start the project and says it has the potential to do more good than harm by accelerating treatments for many incurable diseases. Although the project is hunting for medical benefits, there is nothing to stop unscrupulous scientists misusing the technology. They could, for example, attempt to create biological weapons, enhanced humans, or even creatures that have human DNA, according to Professor Bill Earnshaw, a highly respected genetic scientist at Edinburgh University who designed a method for creating artificial human chromosomes. Quote, if we manage to create synthetic body parts or even synthetic people, then who owns them? And who owns the data from these creations? This is something that we've kind of touched on the show before, but this idea of these AI, this sort of science fiction idea of creating a body that is driven by a mind operating off of artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence. We're talking about a creature now that has no soul, but has a body and has a mind. Could such a thing be inhabited by demonic forces? And that really goes back to this concept in Matthew 24:37-39, where Jesus says, "But as it was in the days of Noah, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." Now, we sort of understand that to mean that in the same way that there was unrighteousness and unbelief that ran rampant throughout all of the world, and the flood came upon them unexpectedly, that the judgment that comes when Jesus returns will also come unexpectedly on an unrighteous and unbelieving world. That's true. But can we stretch that a little further? Does that also mean that the other things that were happening in the days of Noah, like the Nephilim, the fallen angels who came down and mated with human women, creating these giant offspring, could something like that happen in the last days? Genesis 6:1-4 says, "And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown." If I could tell you one thing to look out for as we continue into the future, it's that the science fiction of today will become the reality of our future. That's not an outlandish statement, because in many ways, the science fiction of the past has become our current reality. So many things that, honestly, even just look at the cell phone. That kind of technology wasn't even dreamed of in some of the craziest sci-fi of the past, and yet that is the reality that we live in. Now let me get into the point that I mentioned earlier. I actually believe that the tech elite of the world, that the greatest minds of the world, are working towards creating totally synthetic human beings whose minds are driven by artificial intelligence. And I think it connects to something prophetic that is mentioned in Revelation. So let's jump into Revelation 13:14-15. "And he declares those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast, who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed." I believe that Satan wants to be like God in every way. And I believe that Satan wants to be worshipped in the same way that God is worshipped. Now, when I read a passage like this, what it reminds me of is the story of creation in Genesis, where God said that he made mankind what? He made mankind in his image. We're talking about the image of the beast. We're talking about something that is made in the image of the beast, right? So it says that God made mankind in his image, and God breathed life into Adam. Well, it says here in Revelation about the image of the beast that he was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast. There are a handful of theories about what this is and what to look out for, but I really believe that Satan wants to create a perversion of what God did with humanity. I think that in the same way that God made a people to be after his own image, in his likeness, to carry his spirit, and to, have the attributes of his nature, I believe that Satan wants to create a perverted version of that. And I believe that's what the image of the beast is. I mean, look at the language of that. He wants to make something in his image and breathe life into it. Now, I believe that Satan not only wants to make a perverted version of humanity, I also believe that Satan wants to reshape humanity in his image. That's, I think, really the push behind transhumanism. And we know that in the last days, the beast system is going to have complete and total control over everyone. And I think a key component to both of these things, remaking humanity in the image of Satan and also controlling humanity with this beast system, I think a key point in this are these BCIs that we're seeing with companies like Neuralink. So we've talked a lot about Neuralink in the past. I'm going to go into one article to dive into a little bit of what they're doing and what they hope to accomplish. Elon Musk put a chip in this paralyzed man's brain. Now he can move things with his mind. Should we be amazed or terrified? An accident left Nolan Arbaugh paralyzed, but Musk's Neuralink brain implant allows him to control computers with his thoughts. Is it a life-changing innovation that could help millions, or the start of a dystopia where a billionaire can access our thoughts? Although relentlessly positive, Nolan recognizes the dark possibilities of the technology lodged in his brain. Neuralink says it doesn't monitor his brain or track what he does online, but warned him that someone might be able to reverse engineer the data produced by his neurons to work out what he's been looking at. Quote, with that in mind, I keep it very PG, he says. When I ask him what a bad use of a BCI might be, he reels off a list. Mind control, body control. At this point, it's only reading my signals, but it will be able to write at some point. That's the scary part. As if the ability to read our thoughts was not scary enough. A stated goal of Neuralink is actually to write new thoughts into our brain. Sending signals into the brain can be scary. You could make people see anything, experience different feelings, emotions, hallucinations.